Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be talking about Pretty Little Liars Summer School. That's
Yay!
the best reaction I've ever had in any intro. I love it. And I am joined today by cast members Bailee Madison, Malia Pyles, Maia Reficco, Zaria, Mallory Bechtel, Annabeth Gish, along with creator and showrunners Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa and Lindsay
Woo!
Calhoun Bring.
Woo!
That's a
Woo!
mouthful.
Oh, good
We
job.
did it. We did it. We're all done
Did
now.
it.
Bailee, I wanted to start off with you because
Oh no, that's your first mistake. But okay, let's go.
I love how much with Imogen, I think especially through this season, she's always been someone who's incredibly protective of people around her and
Mhm.
tries to carry a lot of inner strength for people that she cares about. And there's the added element of having become a mom since last season as well. But we kind of also see the way that it starts to really weigh on her in different ways, and even down to she's having trouble sleeping and just that constant living with the fear and the idea of a threat around her. And I
Mhm.
was interested in how you wanted to create those parallels of the real strength that she carries, but also the way that the fear kind of constantly comes to the surface with her.
Yeah, well, th on behalf of Imogen, thank you for acknowledging all of that. No, I remember we were obviously all so excited to be able to go back and come back and, revisit these characters in a second season. But I remember we all had a chance to go into the writer's room very early on, and I was able to sit down with Roberto and Lindsay, and obviously to no surprise at all, they were like, "Trust me, we're gonna talk about all of the things that Imogen has going on." And I think she, as all the girls did, had so much trauma last year. But she's also a young girl who's going through postpartum, and she just gave her baby up for adoption. And there's this looming threat that's constantly around. And how does she protect the ones that she loves? And also, how does she keep her own mental sanity protected as well? And thankfully, so much of that story was already on the page for me every single day and weaved in really wonderful, beautiful ways as the episodes went on. And I think it was just trying to remind myself every day all the little nooks and crannies that were going through her mind and the things that she was trying to work through. And I think the identity crisis that she's also facing. I mean, who is she, and can she be loved, and can she trust again, and can she be desirable? And there are so many of those beautiful, truthful stories. And I mean, we're so lucky. That's what Roberto and Lindsay do so well on the show with all of these young women is even though the show is so fun and so crazy and the slasher world is there, it's constantly grounded with I think truth and stories that matter. So it's a privilege to get to play her.
Absolutely. And Malia, in terms of talking about Mouse, she's not necessarily the first person to speak out loud or to kind of feel as comfortable taking up space, but I love watching the growth that you've built into her and her
Oh.
becoming more comfortable with that because of this friendship group that she has. And even down to her being the one to be like, no, I really want to have my sweet 16. Like I want to have a party. I want to celebrate it with the people who are important to me. And so how have you kind of really used this season to develop a lot of that inner growth with her?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I was like super supported by, of course, the writing and also like the costumes, the makeup, everything that kind of helped color this blossom for Mouse.
Mhm.
We find her in season two given a newfound freedom because she is not under the careful watch of her moms, and is instead being watched after her lovely grandma, or Lola. And I think it's really cool to watch Mouse make mistakes, but on her own terms.
Mhm.
Of course, within that, there's still some of the sins of her mother. Like
Mhm.
she has the Anrata curse of not letting go of the past. And you can find her, kind of feeding her obsession constantly with spooky spaghetti, but it ends up being a gift, I think, in the end to helping and aiding in this mystery that unravels. So I'm proud of her. It's been really fun to grow up with her too. It's been great.
I love that that's been the experience. And Maya, for you with Noah, she has this real tough exterior, and it feels like she's had to develop that sort of skill set for herself in life. But it's really interesting to see the way that that's really changed, and it's becoming less of a reactionary thing and something that she's able to use more as a specific tool intentionally. And I was interested in how that's been a shift and a change, along with being able to allow her to be a little bit more vulnerable because she feels safer now.
Absolutely. I think all of the girls are kind of finding their footing again after everything that went down season one.
Oof.
So I think with Noah specifically, she was in such a state of survival mode, fight or flight, where I think this instinct of protecting everybody at the cost of anything was the only way that she could kind of stay afloat and stay alive, literally. And I think season two was so fun and lovely to play and get to explore because of how much more honest she is within herself. And I think one thing that I really loved about how Roberto and Lindsay wrote this journey for her is that there are so many little backs and forths like there are in life, and there is no really like there's no certainty, but there's room to play and there's room to find yourself within that confusion. And I think um now because she even though she's still getting chased by a murderer, I think there is a bit more understanding of what it is that she feels strong with and what makes her feel confident in herself to defend the people that she loves or defend herself. So it was such a beautiful challenge. And I don't know, I enjoyed every second of it. I love Noah.
Me too.
It's so great. And Zaria, for you, in terms of playing Farron this season, she's going through this real journey of trying to reestablish and kind of rebuild her sense of identity. She was so tied to dance in the past. And then it's, do I try to be one of the guys to fit in? Is this who I am? And so in terms of getting to play a character who had a real sense of self in the past, but now is kind of breaking that down and rebuilding that, what has been the experience in getting to play through that space?
Oh my goodness, what has been the experience? It's been challenging, it's been fruitful, it's been a discovery. I think that, Roberto and Lindsay really gave me such a great foundation with Farron. I was able to go and know exactly who she was, and I related to her in the way of, you can't tell Farron no. And that's something my brother says about me. He's like, Zari's gonna find a way. So her and I have that in common. So coming into the second season, it was so difficult because she suddenly, through all of this trauma, had to break down in order to evolve. And that to me feels so poetic in life. There's so many times when you are challenged and you feel like, how can I navigate this? I don't feel ready. And I feel as though Farron navigates the world as if she says, yes, I'm ready. And this season was her saying yes in a different way and to different things, and also learning who she is to other people, who she can trust, how to trust. I think another really beautiful version of, Farron's story, besides her flings and her bathing suits and all that.
She looks good though. She looks good.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. I think besides that, she was also learning what strength meant, because in the past it was being strong for her mom, being strong for her dad, being strong for her friends. And this season, I think strength meant being vulnerable, and she had to go through the toughest version of herself to find that. So to sum it up, it was fun.
Mallory, similarly for you in playing Kelly, I feel like she's also kind of reestablishing herself in a lot of ways. Kind of going through some loss at the beginning of the season and then being somewhere completely new. And there's kind of the facade that she has to put on of holding herself together and not really getting the space to deal with grief and loss. And then there's moments where she kind of steps back into her old world where we see that come to the surface a little bit more. And so what did you want that journey to look like for her in the way that you were building this sense of here's what I'm projecting, but here's actually what's going on underneath?
Yeah, it's been such a whirlwind of experience. All of season one was her trying to differentiate herself from Karen after that death. And when we pick up in season two, um, there's so many layers to the Karen death, because obviously she was not a good person, and she doesn't, especially with her relationship with Farron, she doesn't want to be put in that same category. But at the same time, Karen was her best friend. Like, that was the person that she looked to for validation. And so when we pick up with Kelly, like, she's quite lonely. She's a lonely character. And I think she's convinced herself that she doesn't belong with these girls, and she's just desperate for any sort of sense of validation. And that comes from her mom. And it comes from the church and from Redemption House. Like it gives her this sense of purpose. But yeah, it's such a fun challenge. Like I feel so grateful. You know, I always mourn the loss of Karen because I loved playing that character. But at the same time, you read these scripts and these episodes, and there's always just these flickers of Karen, and her memory lives on. And Kelly has definitely proven to be like what a challenge. And you're totally right of like putting on the face even though everything's kind of crumbling behind doors. That's really fun to play. It's a challenge to play, and there's a lot
I
to
love
unpack.
I
love
Kelly.
Yeah.
Me and Maia said we wanted to be you if we could switch roles.
I said that too.
I would love to be
She said
Kelly.
herself too. I did choose myself.
She would. She would.
Annabeth, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was I feel like the scope of what you have to do in your performance is so different to what you usually have to do as a scene partner, because in playing Dr. Sullivan, it's very much about creating the emotional space that the other characters need in order for them to feel a sense of trust and to feel really comfortable opening up. And so you, in turn, have to be incredibly present, and it's very much relying on the listening versus being the one to set the emotional tone of a scene. And I was just interested in how that's a very different dynamic as an actor to perform scenes like that so frequently in the show.
Oh, well, a very good question and so true. You know, I mean, for me, it's a restraint to have to hold back my own emotional landscape back. And clearly with, you know, as I'm just listening to everyone speak, the complexity of the rich inner lives of each of these characters, of these women that Roberto and Lindsay have created along with these actors, they're bringing a lot of trauma and a lot of complexity to make space for. So for me personally, it was a joy. Oh, get it? A. It was a joy, both professionally and personally, because I feel a little bit like the elder statesman. You know, I'm an actress. I've been around a long time, but and a mother hen to these wonderful talents and these dynamic women, and then holding space for them as characters too. It was really a privilege to listen. You know, really, it was a privilege to be in the room with them on that gorgeous couch.
It was gorgeous.
And I feel the same way both on and off set. It was just a dream of a job, honestly.
Wonderful.
We were very lucky. Yeah.
Roberto and Lindsay, you know, one of the things that I appreciate about the show is the way that you build such a specific sense of tension, because it's so internal for the characters in a way that the audience really feels and connects to it too. You know, it's not necessarily about just trying to create jump scares, even though we do still have a handful of those in the show as well. And I was really interested in like the unique dynamic and really writing that way and creating the show that way with such intention.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Both Lindsay and I are fanatics of horror movies, suspense movies, thrillers, and one of the joys of this show is that, and we love YA. I mean, that's our both of our backgrounds, is the idea that we can kind of take these two genres and bring them together. But to your point, we love our horror villains and we love our horror set pieces, but you know, every one of our stories, every one of our scenes, even if it's a comedic scene, even if it's a friendship scene, we do always talk about what is the underlying tension or threat there. And when we first started talking about Pretty Little Liars, you know, Lindsay and I had many conversations, but one of the things Lindsay identified very early on, and it was so insightful, was unlike some YA shows that are about young people and how they are in the world, this show was about, and Lindsay, you can definitely speak to this more than I can, is this is a show about how young women go through the world and how they face threats, not just every day, but almost every moment of the day. And that gives a baseline for that sort of tension, like every interaction there's a threat of a microaggression or a macroaggression, and being able to kind of harness that is kind of what one of the things that makes this show so special and different from other YA shows.
Yeah, no, we in terms of the tension too, we think for us horror is all tension, right? It wouldn't be special if horror was just a series of jump scares and gags, but kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop is what I think when you're holding your breath is the true kind of touchstone of horror. And with a YA show, we still want to let these characters be young people who are figuring themselves out, who are discovering who they are, who are falling in love, who are breaking up, who are meeting new people. And in a normal YA show, when you introduce someone new, you could think, ooh, is this gonna get what's going on here? In our show, we think, ooh, are they gonna kill these girls? So I think it's really fun to kind of have that YA coming of age to play with for these characters to let them grow up. And the horror, we kind of said from the beginning that the thing that grounds the horror is, engaging in stories that are the horrors that young people and specifically young women face. But the heightened horror does give us this playground to have fun and to let everybody get tested in different ways and to kind of, as Zaria said, in terms of, Farron's character being so strong, everyone's put to the test, but every character here is really finding who they are and finding their inner strength through having someone, try to kill them. That's been my experience.
It's a metaphor.
Right. No, and it's such a great point about the fact that yes, it's a show that has all these horror elements, but it really is this kind of YA coming of age. And Bailee, kind of coming to you first on this, I think with Imogen especially.
Did you
right
learn?
there.
Okay. If anything, it was proof that your answer was brilliant.
Great
Thanks,
answer.
we will take it. Thanks, guys. All right.
Well, with Imogen especially, when you step back, you kind of remember this is a girl who at 15 who has gone through so much beyond just what they faced in terms of coming after them, becoming a mom, everything that she went through with the sexual assault previously. Yeah. And there's so many experiences beyond that that have caused her to mature beyond her years. And at the same time, she is still a teenage girl that is excited to have a new crush for the first time in a while and things like that. And so how have you kind of found that balance between a character who is so much older than her years and at the same time at her heart and her core is still just a kid figuring the world out and who she is in it?
Oh, I love that question. I think even trauma aside, I think that that part of balance happens at any point in your life. I think that there's always like that childlike tendency that you're constantly trying to reach onto and remember what that feels like to not have had the innocence, I think, stripped away from you. And that happens in different aspects of life. And for Imogen, obviously, hers happened in such a heightened and traumatic sense. But it's like one of my favorite things to get to play with her is because I always say she's like an impulsive loose cannon that means well, but she doesn't, she doesn't always make the best decisions. But in that moment, if someone was like, do you fully believe in what you're doing? I think she'd be like, yeah, and don't tell me otherwise. So it was really so fun this season to get to see her try to smile and try to have fun. And I think I desperately wanted that for her, a chance for her to get to feel pretty and feel like she belonged in this beautiful friend group that she admires and looks up to. I think, there's so much of that question of like, am I wearing this scarlet letter around? Are my friends embarrassed to be next to me? Do I belong in this place, or am I just kind of this walking story of just sadness? And you see that with her when when Johnny's introduced this season, is that realization that it's so easy for someone to find out her trauma and her history, and she can't keep that a secret. She can't hold on to it. It's kind of open for the public to know, and that's the perception. I think she never wants to be viewed out as a victim, but I think struggles with trying to balance those two things, and kind of has that imposter syndrome when she is trying to be happy. Am I allowed to feel this way? Or if I feel this way, is someone that I love going to get hurt because of it? So it's like such a joy to to play her little waves.
It's all very meta too, because as just women and people in the world navigate, it's all really there. They've done such a great job of capturing those themes and those issues, and we get to watch these girls walk through them.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. And for the rest of the four of you, in terms of playing these teenage characters, what are some of the spaces that you've found particularly for yourselves in terms of that dynamic of older beyond their years, but still young at heart?
Well, I mean, actually, I was just thinking about something really lovely just to go back to your question earlier about the voice. You kind of find Mouse in season one, um, really feeling empowered by her own voice and like kind of to the girls being like, listen to me, please listen to me. Something's happening, looming in the back in the shadows. And there is some denial there, of course, because the girls probably don't want to re-traumatize themselves over and over again when she's introducing spooky spaghetti. But it's really cool that she's put in a predicament to have to choose her own voice and like be very like steadfast with it and continue, even though she gets like a lot of no's maybe in the beginning when she's trying to um have her smoke signals. But it was definitely something I could relate to as, someone that went through teenage years as well. Just like sometimes being so scared of your own voice and then having to be forced to use it and in a really positive way just to be listened to, and whether that come from your peers or authority in your life. I think that's like, of course, a journey that we all go on at one point, and it's really cool that I get to play that on screen.
And
Yeah.
Roberto and sorry.
No.
No, never mind. Come on. No.
That's fine.
I was gonna say, I think Farron actually, it's funny, has the opposite experience. She actually learns to leave behind her parent, and so much so she's like, I'm fun, I swear, which is so funny to me. So yeah, that's all I was gonna add. And Maia?
No, I just think that this season's twist with summer school really allowed us to play with being teenagers and going through love and going through summer jobs. And yes, we are getting chased by murderer amidst all of that, which is very fun and adds to the campy horror aspect that we all know and love. But I think we are all dealing with trauma, and there is such unity in these girls, and they find so much support within the group. And I think slowly but surely they're finding that support within themselves as well, while having fun and falling in love and running and looking hot and sweaty from like running away from murder, which is great.
Mouse tiptoes away.
And lastly, for the two of you, Roberto and Lindsay, I love the way that the show is very self-referential, and you can kind of feel the fact that you love the genre so much. And in particular this season, the constant reference to the fact that they're all final girls at this point keeps coming up. I thought was a
I
great
want
point.
it to be a shot game.
Yeah.
Everyone should take a
I don't
shot
think anyone
when
would
we say
survive.
final girl. No, you'd be wasted, but it'd be fun.
How did you feel like you wanted to kind of add more certain like self-referential moments like that to the show this season?
I don't even think we could stop if we tried. I mean, we are such horror fanatics and fans, and the room of writers. We're all we do is talk about horror movies. What horror movies have come out? We just went to see The First Omen and loved it, and talk, and then we saw Immaculate, and then we saw The Nun too. So it's all we do is that. No, but obviously the show is in dialogue with so many classic horror tropes and horror iconography. I think Lindsay, one of the things Lindsay did that was so smart was, since we were doing the second sequel season, Lindsay watched all of the iconic sequels: Halloween 2, Friday the 13th Part 2, all of those. And then the fun of it though is, I think one of the fun things, and you yourself said it, is usually in a movie you have one final girl, and the thesis of this iteration of Pretty Little Liars is that all of the girls are final girls. So it's fun. One of the journeys is like, I always love when someone's like, now I'm the final girl, and it's like, yep, you're the so that's the fun of this show, is kind of treating and in horror movies, the final girl always has a great horror set piece chase scene, was devising each of those for each of these incredible actors. That's been one of the fun things about it.
For sure. No, I think, us being such huge horror fans, getting to have this kind of backdrop to highlight the characters and highlight the stories. And anything that we watch will sort of give us inspiration. And, you might not connect this immediately to Pretty Little Liars or Slasher or what we're thinking, but Roberto and I are obsessed with Children of the Corn. And out of that was born a franchise for Mallory, for Kelly, these sort of weird outlier children run church.
God, that movie traumatized
It's
me.
a traumatizing movie, and there's like corn iconography.
I grew up in Iowa.
That's right.
But by the way, that's why it's Pastor Malachi.
Yes.
Like Malachi was the lead cult member, the lead child cult member of Children of the Corn, and then we submit these names for approval. They clear, and then we're just cackling like Pastor
and then you have to put it in the script.
Father Karras.
Yeah, Father Karras.
No, it's so fun. So it's just fun to be. We always start with what are our character stories? What are those meaningful stories for everyone? And then to be able to have horror to embellish it, and with how much we love the genre and infusing that in. And Roberto, I know you'd mentioned this, but we took inspiration from real horror stories and from this documentary we were obsessed with called Beware the Slender Man. And we were big. Malia, I know you were a big creepypasta person. I came up on creepypasta, and so sort of out of that was born, this franchise of horror as well. So it's really fun to be able to take the things that we love anyway, the movies we'd be watching anyway, the documentaries we'd be watching anyway, the books we'd be reading anyway, and get to color the show with them. It just makes it really special.
It absolutely comes through in terms of that love of the genre, and your performances are also great. Everyone's in for such a treat in watching this season. Congratulations and thank you so much.